Hello everyone, welcome back to Everything Weapons and the channel. So heavy machine guns appeared on key Russian commercial tanker in the Baltic. The weapons mounted on a specialized natural gas tanker underscore Moscow's growing fear of attacks on its shipping in the Baltic. All credit to thewarzone.com. This is where we're going to be reading today, so check them out. Really good website. So one of Russia's commercially flagged vessels in the Baltic has appeared armed with heavy machine guns. And it isn't just any cargo hauler. The weapon's fit is likely intended to provide close-in protection against naval drone attacks, but is also evidence of increasingly bold measures taken by Moscow to ensure that military bases in its strategically important Kaliningrad exclave to continue to be supported. After all, the ship in question, the Marshal Vasilenskiy, is highly strategic one, Russia's only floating storage and regasification vessel that plays a key role in supporting Kaliningrad. This comes at the same time that Russia ramps up efforts to protect its notorious shadow fleet used to circumvent Western sanctions on oil exports, despite efforts to interdict it. Evidence of the armed tanker development was brought to light in an exclusive report from Holger Runema, an investigative journalist working for Delphi Estonia, an Estonian-based news website. Runema secured the release of imagery from the Estonian border guard showing the Marshal Vasilenskiy operating in the Baltic Sea last month with machine gun positions on either side of the deck above the bridge. The Marshal Vasilenskiy, 945-foot liquefied natural gas tanker of 118,000 gross tonnage was spotted by an Estonian border guard surveillance aircraft as it was sailing past Estonia's western islands towards the Russian port of Bolshoi Bor in the Gulf of Finland. The sandbagged gun positions were armed with 12.7 millimeter cord heavy machine guns, a belt-fed weapon that is used by infantry as well as being mounted on vehicles and ships. Basically Russia's M2 Browning, right? So it's a heavy machine gun. 12.7 millimeters, a huge round. So the Marshal Vasilenskiy Vasilevsky is not part of the Shadow Fleet, but it has been subject to sanctions. Moreover, this appears to be the first direct evidence of Russia installing weapons on a civilian ship in the Baltic region. The vessel is owned by the Gazprom company and regularly supplies Kaliningrad with natural gas, with 4 such voyages identified since last August. Almost certainly the guns on the Marshal are intended to help defend against Ukrainian drone attacks. The cord fires at a rate of 600 to about 650 rounds per minute and has an effective range of around 2,000 yards, which is considerable. Perhaps a tiny bit more if you're lucky and if the user is skilled. Earlier this month, Ukraine used aerial drones to attack the prestigious Russian naval base at Kronstadt near St. Petersburg, and what appears to have been the first strike of its kind against the Baltic fleet. By targeting Kronstadt, Ukraine signaled the opening up of a new front in its drone war with Russia, namely against the Baltic fleet while it is in port. Previously, Ukraine's naval campaign has focused overwhelmingly on the Russian Black Sea fleet. Many successful attacks have been recorded against the Black Sea fleet vessels and facilities, forcing the general evacuation of Russian naval assets from occupied Crimea and to bases in Russia proper. Ukrainian attacks on Russian-linked shipping have also extended to a more limited extent into the Mediterranean. These attacks have also involved a growing and increasingly advanced array of unmanned, uncrewed surface vessels, or USVs, or drone boats, as well as uncrewed underwater vessels, or UUVs. Ukraine's proven ability to launch long-range aerial drone attacks, as seen in the videos recently in Moscow, as well to bring kamikaze drones closer to Russian targets and strike them from short range, underscores the potential vulnerability of Russian tankers working the Baltic too. While Ukraine, as far as is known, has not launched any USV or UUV attacks in the Baltic, it would certainly be within its capabilities to do so. At the same time, though, Russia has no doubt also considered the possibility of an Operation Spiderweb type attack in the Baltic, in which short-range drones could be launched covertly in mass from locations much closer to their targets. In the same way that Operation Spiderweb used commercial trucks as covert launch platforms for one-way aerial attack drones, any suitable vessel could be used in the same way by Ukraine in the Baltic, whether to launch aerial drones, USVs, or UUVs. In this context, the Marshal Vasilevsky would be a particularly prized tanker. It is currently Russia's only floating storage and regasification vessel, a ship that takes on board supercooled LNG and then converts it into gas that is then fed into pipelines, in this case in Kaliningrad. As well as countering potential drone attacks, putting guns on the Marshal Vasilevsky and sends a signal to NATO forces not to interfere with it. Warning shots could be fired to send a message to boarding parties or helicopters. Russia's willingness to use warning shots was demonstrated in the English Channel earlier this month. I have a separate video about that, where a British yacht basically reported that the Russians in a bigger ship shot a warning shot. Quite interesting video. Check it out on my channel. With the cord gun, the vessel could bring down a helicopter with ease, forcing a boarding force to kinetically attack the ship before attempting boarding. So the cord heavy machine gun is super powerful, right? It can easily take down a helicopter or any aircraft for that matter that is low enough and slow moving enough, I guess you could say, if they get lucky, if they get a few shots on it. Typically, the crew of a vessel, such as the Marshal Vasilevsky, would not be trained to operate heavy machine guns, but this raises the likeliness that the ship's crew includes members of the Russian military, or more likely the Federal Security Service, or FSB, Russia's principal security agency. But you know, that portable air defense systems, or manpads, could also be stowed below decks to defend against an aerial drone attack. So they could have more weapons that we just didn't see, right? So the development comes as Russia takes increasingly forceful measures to protect the vessels of its shadow fleet. These provide Russia with a critical lifeline, allowing oil to be sold and funds generated to continue the country's war against Ukraine. Both China and India regularly accept such deliveries. Over the past year, European authorities have intercepted Shadow Fleet tankers on several occasions, typically on the grounds of a flying false flag or for being suspected of damaging undersea cables. There have been previous reports indicating that Shadow Fleet oil tankers regularly include former mercenaries and soldiers among their crews. Thank you guys very much for watching. So this is evidence of Russia's growing concern that logistical vessels, including civilian ones, supporting critical infrastructure, could become targets in the Baltic region as this war increasingly extends beyond the traditional battlefields in size and further from Ukraine. But thank you guys very much for watching. All credit to thewarzone.com once again, where I was reading the article. So check them out. Good website. And subscribe, especially if you are new. Most of my viewers aren't subscribed. That makes me sad. So take 1 second out of your day just to give me a like and type a comment, subscribe, ring the bell. That way you don't miss any video I post in the future, and check out the older stuff on the channel. I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.